Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So the Australian football team that has 5 male players who play in the women's division have struck again. They continue to dominate this women's league, and they have even beaten a women's team that was previously undefeated. But there will still be people who insist that there's no unfair advantage, that this is perfectly fair for women's sports, for women's football. To have 5 male players on one team simply because they identify as women or claim to identify as women. You will have people tell you that this isn't destroying women's sports, this isn't infringing upon women at all, and will go along with this gaslighting till the very end. So this successful female team, all-female team, have now been beaten by a team with 5 males. So they are stealing victories from women. They are stealing tournaments, records, accolades. They are infringing upon the achievements of women simply due to identity. This is so wrong, and I don't see how anybody can justify this. This team has been successful. They have been undefeated, and then they happen to play a team with transgender players and end up getting beat. Oh, well, you know, you're going to have to deal with loss. They couldn't go undefeated forever. And if they had lost to another female team that doesn't have any transgender players or anything like that, that doesn't have any males who are over 6 feet, this wouldn't even be reported on at all, obviously. But this is because women are being made to play against transgender players, male athletes. The lack of fairness is bad enough. Destroying the integrity of women's football is bad enough. But nobody seems to care about safety. They care more about the feelings of transgender footballers than they care about the safety of women. It's as clear as day. They're willing to put the safety of women at risk to accommodate people who feel they are women. And the reality is, no matter how you identify, these 5 male players still have male bodies. And they should not be playing against women. They should not be in a women's league. We've seen what's happened in the UK. Over 55 male players playing in women's leagues over there. And one woman ended up with a broken knee, to the point where female players were refusing to play against this team that had 1 transgender player. And here we have 5, and they keep dominating, beating teams that were previously undefeated, women who are on a winning streak. They come along and ruin it. But apparently we're supposed to pretend that they don't have an unfair advantage. And we're supposed to be okay with this. But this is supposedly progressive, even though it's excluding women from their own sports. And that happens when they lose because they have to play a team with 5 male players, or they refuse to play because they don't want to be a part of this, and I don't blame them, or they're afraid of getting hurt. Because that's what happened in the UK. There were women who were terrified to be playing against a team that has 1 male player. So let's take a look.
Help me out, James.
Yes.
I'm really at a loss as to why they might have done so well. Any theories?
Well, they could bend it like Beckham, and unfortunately, Beckham is a male and is a lot better kick than most females. But riddle me this, Caleb: 5 transgendered players, right? How many players are on a soccer team?
I don't know. I don't play soccer, and I don't have much interest in soccer. But yeah, elucidate.
Do you know, Liz?
Elucidate.
Sorry, what was the question?
How many players on a soccer team? Do you know?
Nah.
There's 11. And
so nearly half.
And 5 of them were biological males. No wonder they're cleaning up. They won one game 10-0. One player kicked 6 goals. But some of the outrage of this is that the female teams, or the all-female teams that they were playing against, were not advised at all that they'd be playing against biological males. And there are claims that some of the women were told, do not complain about this, otherwise you'll be reported to an anti-discrimination commission. But get this quote. This is Jen Pedden, who's the president of the Flying Bats transgendered football team.
Flying Bats.
Jen says this, and I quote, "Trans women belong in the women's competition because that's the gender with which they identify." Now, I've got to say, you can't argue with that, can you? Because according to that logic, you can do whatever you want. True, yeah. If you belong in the women's comp because you say you belong in the women's comp, well, I guess that's
but you can't argue with
right
that
there.
logic, because it's not logic.
So an Australian trans-inclusive Premier League women's football team with multiple male players has scored another win yesterday against a women's team. The Flying Bats Football Club will now progress into the Women's Championships after defeating the Lechard Saints 3-2. So the Flying Bats FC, which has at least 5 confirmed male participants, emerged victorious yesterday during round 2 of the Premier League Football New South Wales Champion of Champions knockout competition. The Saints, an all-female team, has now lost the opportunity to compete in the finals. Now, you can imagine if any team was predicted to make the finals, it would be the Saints, because they've gone undefeated. Sounds like they've had a great season so far. And now they're not even getting to the finals, because only 2 teams can make it to the finals. And of course, the team with the 5 male players more than likely has it in the bag. So you're preventing a whole team of women from making it to the finals, even though they're exceptional, but yet they're being denied the finals because of footballers who shouldn't be in that league. I don't care how they identify. Because of identity, the integrity of this league has been compromised, to say the least. There is no fairness in this league anymore. It's completely overriding the principle of sports being in categories for safety and fairness. If there weren't categories, there wouldn't be women's sports. It's as simple as that. Women wouldn't get a look in. They wouldn't qualify for anything, barely. And that's not to put down female athletes, it's just reality, because we're different. Just like if there wasn't a Paralympics, people with disabilities wouldn't be able to compete at that level. It's very simple. If there wasn't a masters division, people of a certain age would have to give up sports, would have to give up competitive sports. If they're made to, compete against a 20-year-old, more than likely they would have a hard time. So what was made for the inclusion of women is now been snatched right from under us to appease males who want to identify as women. And this team, the Saints, they have been excluded from the finals in a league that was made for them, specifically for them, for females. Tell me how you can justify putting the wants of one group over the rights of another. How can you justify that? Why do you choose the males to take up for and ignore the needs and the rights of the women? Why is it okay for them to be excluded from their own league to include people who don't even belong in that league? How can you justify saying that these people's rights are more important than the rights of this group? And is it really a right for a man to be playing in a women's league? Is that a right? Now, you can have a right to be allowed to participate in sports, absolutely. But you must do so in the correct category. Otherwise, you may very well be considered a cheat. And that is not an unreasonable assessment to make. So the Saints all-female team has now lost the opportunity to compete in the finals, leaving the Bats one step closer to winning the women's title. So during the game yesterday, one of the trans-identifying males on the Flying Bats team received 1 red card and 2 yellow cards, indicating serious in-game infractions for which he was ultimately pulled from the match completely. And I said this the last time I reported on this story. One of these males getting a yellow card or a red card could involve seriously injuring a female player. If a woman is playing against another woman or female against another female, because you have to clarify these things, and ends up with a yellow card or a red card, if you're playing too aggressively, that could result in serious injury. But it's less likely to result in serious injury if it's a woman playing against another woman. But if a man is playing against a woman and tackles excessively, the chances of that woman being seriously injured are a lot greater. This is just common sense. So to hear that these players are getting yellow cards, red cards, is very, very scary. It's very, very disturbing. Considering what happened in the UK, where we're hearing reports of broken knees and those sort of injuries. So you can't tell me that these women don't feel that they're putting themselves at risk. You cannot tell me that. More than likely, they know that they're putting themselves at risk, but they want to participate. They don't want to be excluded. And they're going to go ahead and play against these male players, play against this team, knowing that, if this guy decides to be a bit more aggressive, you're done for. Put yourself at risk or don't participate. Play in an unfair match or don't participate. That is no choice. That is coercing women to participate according to terms, number one, they didn't agree to, and number two, are just simply unfair. And 3, are outright dangerous. You're coercing women to go along with terms that are not in their best interest. So one player was so aggressive that he ended up with 2 yellow cards, was basically sent off the pitch. So prior to the competition, the Lechard Saints women's team had previously been undefeated all season, but the Flying Bats had a similar track record, winning all 17 games last season and scoring 76 goals, while only a total of 8 points were scored against them. The Flying Bats have attributed their success to an investment in a dedicated coach position rather than to physical advantages their male players have over the female football players they compete against. Oh yeah, they would. That's called gaslighting. That's called peeing on your leg and telling you that it's raining. And this team has won prize money. So they're literally taking prize money away from female footballers. Now it's been revealed who these 5 players are, and Redux have been doing some digging into the background of these 5 male players. Remember their last match, they had security to protect these players from people hurting their feelings. This team has been protected because, of course, it's the male players who need protecting from women because we're such a threat to them. So I'm probably going to butcher these names, but I'll do my best. So nearly 200 photos of yesterday's match were published online, and Redux can now definitively name the 5 male players in the Flying Bats Women's Football Club as Rayleigh Hargenson, Josephine Massingham, Matty Noble, Leon Sinclair, and Riley Dennis. So Dennis, born Justin, formerly a trans activist YouTuber, was previously identified by Redux as a player for the Flying Bats Women Premier League before transferring to the Flying Bats FC. Dennis was previously accused of severely injuring women while participating in matches for the New South Wales Inter Lions. Yes, you heard that right. So a female player was injured while participating in the women's football game in Australia on May the 21st. That's the video you just saw. This is the second time Dennis is alleged to have injured women while playing in the women's league. Every time I cover these stories, the details that emerge make it more and more disturbing. What is going on that people think that this is acceptable, that it's right to put women through this in the name of inclusion while excluding the women? I just don't understand the mental gymnastics that people have to do to consider this justifiable. So this was just last year on May 21, during a game between the Inter Lions and the St George Football Clubs at the Majors Bay Reserve. Dennis launched his smaller female opponent towards a metal fence, using an aggressive tackle as the two chased down the ball. Take a look at this. Take a look at this. If this person decides to really go for it, I'm sure in no uncertain terms, this person is aware that serious damage can be done. You know, sometimes where the person might be faster than you, have better skills than you, and the only thing you can rely on is your sheer strength, the fact that you're bigger. You know, sometimes it gets to that point where that's all you have. And if you want to win, you're going to have to simply rely on that. It happens in football where sometimes people do things a bit more aggressively. It happens in all sports. I mean, we've seen it happening in, the WNBA, for example, where people play aggressively and hope that that tackle was allowed. And if it is, then you've achieved your goal. So if a male player decides to do that, it will result in serious consequences for his female opponent. And it's very, very scary. It's very disturbing. An anonymous source close to the situation explained to Redux that Dennis left the Inter Lions team following last year's controversy. The source stated that Dennis then submitted at least 3 applications of interest for other teams, which were not accepted. The Flying Bats, however, approved his application to join the team. The football club's official website states it is the biggest LGBTLMNOP women's and non-binary football club in the world, having been founded in 1985. That's their priority. This person is now in a team with 4 other male players. So this team is unstoppable, and this team is 5 times as dangerous. And of course, there's going to be, are you accusing trans people of being dangerous? Trans kids of being dangerous? There's tackles involved where you can get kicked and shoved, and where the ball can come at you very fast, hit you in the head, give you a concussion. I'm saying that's a dangerous position to be put in when it involves playing against male players. That's what I'm saying is dangerous. And anybody with common sense, but apparently when it comes to gender ideology, all common sense has to be thrown out of the window. All biology has to be thrown out of the window. All safety has to be thrown out of the window. So the source told Redux that all of the known men competing in the Flying Bats FC in the Premier League are approximately 6 feet tall or slightly over, with Dennis standing at about 6 feet 4. Oh, but women can be tall. Look at the WNBA. I can just hear the excuses. Football doesn't really attract women over 6 feet. It really doesn't. And of course, we have another player on the team who has mocked terfs before. In March of last year, following a widely publicised women's rights demonstration in Melbourne, which was unexpectedly attended, basically has compared terfs to neo, you know what. So you know what stands out to me? Based on this information, these are people, the male players, who have shown signs of disrespecting women. I mean, you shove a woman into a fence, for example. That's not sportsmanship. Terfs and comparing women who speak out for their rights as, saying they're comparable to the neo people. So they're allowing trans-identifying males who have a disdain for women to be playing against women. It's not, I want to be part of the sisterhood. It's, I'm going to go and play and humiliate you and stick it to the terfs, because terfs are women, they're females. So having resentment and anger towards women who actually speak out, that tells me that you are just a misogynist who doesn't like women. And these are the people allowed to play on the women's team, putting women in a very vulnerable position, leaving women open to serious injury too. So let's not get it twisted. There have been football coaches and clubs who have expressed concerns about this Flying Bats team because of the male players, because of their height and strength, which is as clear as day. I mean, there's no disputing that they have an advantage, and there's 5 of them, and they're all over 6 feet. I mean, come on. So in March, the president of the St. Patrick's FC, Frank Parisi, brought his concerns to the North West Sydney Football Association. In leaked audio of the meeting, Parisi could be heard informing the association that he had lost more than 20 female players because they had refused to compete against the Flying Bats. Parisi also revealed that one of his female players had her leg broken by a trans-identified male associated with the Flying Bats, and that she had been penalised for transphobia following her injury. This is just outright abuse of women. Outright abuse of women. That's what this is. How can you see it in any other way? Again, I keep asking the same question. How is this acceptable? So in 2024, it's perfectly acceptable to abuse women. I did the story yesterday about J Kean, who has been attacked multiple times by men simply for, organising her Let Women Speak events. She's been attacked in multiple countries. Multiple women have been attacked.
The moment transgender right activists ambush a women's rights rally in Tacoma, Washington. One counter-protester seen here trying to shove a speaker. Another attack at the rally reportedly left a victim with 2 broken fingers. J Kean attended the rally and joins me now. Wow, so it sounded like things got violent. First of all, what was the purpose of this rally? And then describe a little bit more about what ended up happening.
Well, the purpose is to literally let women speak because, now Elon Musk has taken over Twitter. Maybe it's not so bad, but women are being silenced all through tech. So we're taking our voices back to the public square. I mean, many of those women attended. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their livelihoods. They might have lost their children to this pernicious cult of transgenderism, and they just want to talk about it.
So were there men, J, in the group of people that were attacking you?
Yeah, I mean, it's overtly populated by quite misogynist, violent men, but also there's a lot of young women singing their praises and being really, really hateful. But the violence often comes from men, and April got her fingers crushed by a man's bare hands. He literally got her hand in his and crushed it and broke her fingers.
Oh my God.
The incident in New Zealand, I'm sorry I got the gender wrong and not in the correct way. I thought it was a woman, but no, it's I normally get it right. which is, it's normally obvious. It is obvious, but for some reason, I don't know. So I was referring to the person as she, but no, it was a trans-identified male who poured, tomato soup over Kelly J in New Zealand. Happened to her in New Zealand. And then, on Saturday, she had tomato soup thrown over her again. One day, it's tomato soup. Tomorrow, it doesn't bear thinking about what it could be. They are willing to use violence. I think it's obvious. It just happens to be that they chose soup that day. So this is what I'm seeing with this story. They're being allowed to play on the women's team. There are women getting injured. And they're punishing the woman who got injured for speaking up and saying, I got injured because of your policy. I got injured because you're allowing males to play on a women's team in a women's league. They turn around and punish the woman. I mean, that is abuse to me, in my opinion. Attendees were also told that a decision to boycott participation by forfeiting matches against the Flying Bats would result in disciplinary action being issued. Just like the statement released by the World Darts Federation, saying that if you forfeit a game, against a trans-identifying male, you will face disciplinary action. This is what women are being told. They're not even allowed to peacefully opt out and say no. There are women opting out, not even to make a big stink about it. It's simply because they don't want to put themselves at risk. And even that can result in disciplinary action or being penalized in some way. So there are thought to be a total of at least 9 trans-identified males playing football within the women's leagues, though their identities have been protected and withheld by Australian media. And Redux, after publishing an article about that trans-identifying male, Dennis, the E-Safety Commissioner of Australia contacted the publication telling them to censor or delete their article. You're not even allowed to report facts. If they truly believe that this is the right thing to do, that this is progressive and it's being inclusive and they have the moral high ground, why so much secrecy? Why hiding the identities and going above and beyond to protect these people? Meanwhile, the women are told that if you get injured, you get injured. If she dies, she dies. The women are told if you suffer abuse online, if the TRAs come for you, oh well, you shouldn't be a bigot then, should you? They don't get any protection, and women don't have a track record of attacking and acting violently towards people in this community. They don't have a track record of that. It's the other way around. We see many examples of that. And at this point, it should really be discussed as a huge issue in various countries. It should be discussed as a huge issue, women's safety. But it's not. So this whole Flying Bats story, it's a lot more sinister than we initially thought. The situation's bad enough, but now looking into a bit more into the background of some of these male players and the mentality that they have, it's very scary that women are being put in a position that they have to play against these players or be excluded or be disciplined, face penalties. And if you get injured, you may face penalties if you complain about getting injured. And sports is supposed to be enjoyable. Sports is supposed to be an opportunity for everybody, right? But this is what they've turned women's sports into. It's very disheartening, very, very sad. So yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, please. Like, comment and subscribe, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.